one thing I really hope to with this episode is we give people info to
Right.
know
Right.
that if they ever do happen to get divorced, at least you're in tune to understand what to do. Even like with prenups, I think a lot of people, don't really know what a prenup is. Or, is it weird to get married and have a guy say, look, we want to do a prenup? Does that hurt your relationship to say that? Because it's kind of like, I don't trust you?
Excellent question. I'll say a lot of that, if I'm going to be straight to the point. I would say it depends on the family background, the culture, right? I've had some clients who come from high net worth families, right? And that family's culture is used to protecting the front line. Maybe dad is a high 6-figure or even 7-figure individual, and the son is going to inherit, or the daughter is going to inherit. That parent wants to make sure that they're protecting the inheritance from being absorbed, because procedurally speaking, what can occur is without that prenup, if something were to happen to dad or mom and you inherit, a significant amount of money, assets, funds, whatever the case may be, the other spouse, let's say, decides things go wrong or they want a divorce. I think, we have an NBA player, Kevin Garnett, who's going through this. I just read about it in the paper the other day. What happens without that frontline protection, you can have rights and entitlements to that because you didn't have a prenup, because you didn't have that early document in place to put those protections.
Besides getting a prenup,
Sure.
what can people with money, get from you that could help them? Is there anything else?
Well, outside of money, assets, access. This is something really critical. Forget about the rich. Let's just talk about your normal John and Jane Doe. Let's say you work for the MTA.
Sure.
And you have the MTA workers tend to have a great pension plan, and you worked years and years and years, and you've amassed a pretty decent pension where you can actually retire and not get a second job, right? Because we know we live in a day and age where people retire and they still have to go get a gig.
Sure.
Without a prenup, you can go ahead and have your pension absorbed by your spouse, because once you get divorced, there's a process called QDRO, QDRO, a Qualified Domestic Relations Order. And once the divorce is done, the judge signs off and says, based on what your pension agreement initially said, because your pension irons out what a spouse can get in the case of a divorce. Some say if you were married for 10 years, you're going to get 10 years of this pension. Some say it's going to be a certain figure, and the QDRO is what automatically, without you having any say, if you're the person who has to give it up, having to give up the funds from your pension. So that's one thing that can happen. And that's more often than you think when it boils down to it.
Does